In the peaceful countryside of Colorado, where rolling hills met open skies, the Carter family was quietly enduring a storm no one else could see. Michael Carter, a high school science teacher, had spent the past year watching his world slowly crumble. His daughter Leah was born after a traumatic delivery that left her unable to move the lower half of her body. The doctors had used words like spinal trauma and unlikely to walk, but all Michael could hear was the sound of his little girl's first cry and the silence that followed. Elena, his wife, once full of laughter and light, had been quietly battling postpartum depression. Though she never left Leah's side, her smiles had faded, her voice soft and distant. She moved through the house like a ghost, doing her best, but always on the verge of tears. Leah was turning 1. No party, no candles, no friends, just the weight of a difficult year pressing on their shoulders. But Michael had a plan, something small yet powerful. He was going to bring a new kind of hope into their home. Not a miracle, not a cure, but maybe, just maybe, a reason to smile again. Michael had always believed in science. But when it came to Leah, logic had failed him. The endless doctor visits, therapy sessions, and sleepless nights brought little change. Every day, he saw his daughter lying still in her crib, her bright eyes full of wonder, but her little body refusing to move. And every day, he watched Elena grow a little smaller, her energy drained by guilt she didn't deserve to carry. A week before Leah's first birthday, Michael sat across from Leah's physical therapist, who offered a gentle suggestion. Sometimes what these kids need is motivation, not just machines and exercises. They need connection, interaction, something that pulls them forward. That night, Michael stayed up reading articles, watching videos, and scrolling through testimonials. Again and again, he came across stories of dogs helping children heal. Not by performing miracles, but by simply being there, loyal, playful, unconditionally loving. It struck a chord deep inside him. By morning, his decision was made. He drove 2 hours to a nearby rescue shelter, tucked in the hills outside town. As he walked through rows of kennels, surrounded by barking and wagging tails, his eyes locked with a young German shepherd pup sitting quietly in a corner. The pup's ears perked up, and in that moment something clicked. There was no hesitation. He knelt down and whispered, "You're coming home with me, little one." The staff asked if he had a name in mind. Michael smiled softly and replied, "Hope," because that's what she was, not just a puppy, but a symbol of what he desperately wanted back in his family, the courage to believe in something better. The tires crunched softly over the gravel as Michael turned into the driveway. Bathed in the golden hush of a setting sun, the house looked the same from the outside, quiet, heavy. But inside, he was carrying something that might change that. In one arm, he held a small bakery box with a single cupcake topped with a pink candle. In the other, a leash gently tugged by a curious little German shepherd pup, tail wagging, ears perked, hope. As he stepped through the front door, Elena looked up from the couch, her eyes tired and shadowed. She took in the scene, cake in one hand, dog in the other, and frowned faintly. "A dog, Michael? Seriously?" She said, not angry, just exhausted. He nodded. "She's not just a dog. She's something more. For Leah. For us." Elena didn't argue. She simply sighed and turned her gaze toward the hallway where Leah's room was. "She's been quiet all day." Michael gave her the cupcake box, then made his way to their daughter's room. Leah lay in her crib, hugging a worn-out plush rabbit, babbling softly to herself. When Michael scooped her up, she blinked and smiled, tiny hands reaching for his beard like she always did. But when they stepped into the living room and Hope patted him behind them, something shifted. Leah froze for a second, eyes wide with curiosity. Hope paused too, as if sensing the importance of the moment. Then, slowly, the pup trotted forward, head low, tail wagging gently. Leah reached out with a shaky hand and touched Hope's soft ear. Then she giggled, a pure, ringing sound that neither Michael nor Elena had heard in months. Elena gasped, hand over her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. For the first time in a long time, something beautiful had broken through the silence. From that moment on, something shifted in the Carter household. It was subtle at first, the way Leah's eyes followed Hope around the room, the way she reached for the dog when she was near, but soon, those tiny signals became something much more powerful. Every morning, Michael would place Leah gently on a soft mat in the living room, where Hope would already be waiting, tail wagging. The pup never jumped or barked too loud. It was as if she instinctively knew that Leah was delicate. She would nuzzle against the baby girl's arm or lie down close enough that their bodies touched. It became their little ritual. Leia started to laugh more. Not just soft giggles, but full-belly joy that lit up her whole face. She babbled to Hope in a language only the two of them seemed to understand. Sometimes she'd wave her arms wildly, and Hope would respond with a playful bark or a little paw tap on the floor. Michael noticed something else too. Elena was beginning to sit with them more. She wasn't as withdrawn. One afternoon, he came home from work and found Elena lying on the floor with Leia and Hope, holding a soft toy between them as if playing tug-of-war. She looked up, surprised to see him, but her smile didn't fade. It was tired, but it was real. Hope had entered their lives as a stranger, but within days, she became a presence that made the air lighter, the silence warmer. And for Leia, who once spent her days staring at ceilings and clutching silent toys, Hope had become her first real friend. One who didn't ask for words or steps, just company. And sometimes company is all it takes to begin to heal. Story continues. Michael didn't cry in hospital. He had happened on a quiet Saturday morning. The kind of morning that felt so peaceful you almost forgot the battles you'd fought to get there. Michael sat on the porch, coffee in hand, a worn paperback resting on his knee, savoring the rare calm. Inside, the soft babble of Leia and the click-click of Hope's paws echoed through the house. Everything seemed perfectly ordinary, until it wasn't. A sharp, urgent bark shattered the stillness. No longer playful, no longer bored. Michael's head jerked up, his heart hammering against his ribs. He dropped the book and sprinted inside, following the barking to the living room. And then he saw her, Leia, standing, alone. Her chubby hands were stretched out in the air, balancing herself with invisible strings. Her knees wobbled. Her body shook slightly, but she was upright, on her own 2 feet. Hope stood nearby, tail wagging furiously as if cheering her on. Michael's knees buckled, and he grabbed the doorway for support, tears streaming freely down his cheeks. Blurred vision overtook him almost instantly. He didn't dare breathe too loudly, afraid he might break the spell. Before he could even call for Elena, she appeared, clutching her bathrobe around her, hair dripping wet from the shower. She took one look at the scene and collapsed on her knees, sobbing. "Baby girl," she whispered, holding out her arms. Leia hesitated, her face scrunched in concentration. The small distance between her and her mother looked like a canyon. That's when Hope sprang into action. The little dog trotted to Leia's side, pressing her sturdy body against Leia's leg. Leia reached out instinctively, grabbing a fistful of Hope's fur for support. Slowly, painfully, beautifully, Leia shuffled her tiny feet forward. One shaky step, then another, and then, with a delighted squeal, she practically threw herself into Elena's waiting arms. Michael sank to the floor beside them, pulling both of them close as Hope bounced excitedly around them. In that moment, time stood still. The world outside faded away. All that mattered was this. Against every prediction, every statistic, and every fear they had ever faced, Leia had found her way to her mother, on her own 2 feet. And standing right beside her, as loyal as ever, was Hope, the little dog who had made the impossible possible. Months later, on a crisp autumn afternoon, the Carter family could be found walking down the winding trails of the town park. Michael carried a small backpack slung over one shoulder, while Elena held Leia's tiny hand in hers. Between them, bounding happily along the leaves, was Hope, full-grown now, but still the same spirited soul who had changed everything. Leia walked slowly, her steps uneven, her legs occasionally trembling under her, but she walked. Sometimes she stumbled, and Hope was always there, circling back, nudging gently, offering silent support. Every time Michael watched his daughter take another step, a fresh wave of gratitude washed over him. It wasn't the therapies alone that had gotten her here. It wasn't the endless medical appointments, the complicated exercises, or even the hours of sleepless worry. It was love. It was connection. It was the simple, profound gift of Hope, both the feeling and the little dog who had lived up to her name in every possible way. Elena had changed too. She no longer moved like a ghost through the house. She smiled more easily, laughed louder, and lived more fully. Her bond with Leia grew deeper each day, stitched back together by moments of triumph and play. Michael realized then that hope isn't just something you find. Sometimes it's something or someone you welcome into your life, even when you're too broken to believe it will matter. As Leia giggled and Hope barked playfully at a falling leaf, Michael squeezed Elena's hand, whispering a silent thank you to the universe for second chances, for healing, and for hope in every beautiful form she had taken.